Okay, everyone, it's 6 p.m., September 18th. This is a regular assembly meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Jeff,
Here.
Bob,
Here.
David,
Here.
Donna,
Here.
Thomas,
Here.
Mark,
Here.
Scott.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a full assembly this evening in the chambers. It's now time for the voluntary pledge of allegiance. I, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next item on the agenda is a non-compliance hearing under the Dangerous Building Code for 410 Metcalf Highway. The hearing will be conducted in a public session and will be recorded. All those who offer testimony shall be sworn in by the clerk. The utility director and the borough officials with relevant testimony shall offer testimony. The utility director may also call other persons having relevant testimony as witnesses. The owner, occupant, mortgagee, leasee, or any other person having an interest in the building shall be permitted to testify, as well as any witnesses having relevant testimony called by such an interested party. Parties may be represented by counsel or others to assist them. The assembly may permit telephonic participation. A party, including the building official, may offer relevant written documents into the record. That party shall also provide copies of such documents to the other parties to the hearing. All such documents presented to the assembly shall be maintained by the clerk. Members of the assembly, as well as the building official, utility director, and the interested parties may ask questions of witnesses. Such questioning may be conducted in an informal manner, but shall be limited to relevant testimony only. The assembly may establish reasonable time limits for the presentation of testimony. And so with that being said, the order of presentation is set out below. The language changed just a little bit in the document that's printed in the agenda. And instead of the building official, it's the utility director that will be doing this. So Mr. Hagerman and Clerk Thompson.
Mr. Hageman, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Assembly. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this non-compliance hearing and present the information on behalf of the wastewater department and the building official tonight. Ray is in attendance on Zoom, and so if there are any questions for him after the presentation and as accordance to the procedure, he's available. I'm hopeful that my testimony will result in the assembly finding the structure at 410 Metcalf Highway meets the codified definition of a dangerous building as located in chapter 9.20.010, letters I and J. Also that the elected body will order the structure to be vacated until such time as it is connected to the public sewer system. To that end, the information provided in the packet is presented somewhat in chronological order. I'll go through the exhibits and explain the actions and timeline that have led us to today's hearing. July of 2020, we received a report of raw sewage on the hillside at 410 Metcalf Highway. An investigation of that report led to the issuance of Exhibit A in your packet on August 3rd, 2020, a notice and order of abatement. The notice alerted the owner to violations of Municipal Code Chapters 9 involving nuisance code and Chapter 14, the sewer code, and gave direction to abate the violations within 2 weeks of the notice and order. The owner appealed the abatement notice on October 2020 to the Assembly. Exhibit B documents the decision of the Assembly on appeal, denying the appeal and upholding the notice and order of abatement. The owner further appealed the Assembly's decision to the court system. That appeal was ultimately dismissed. The appeal process took many months to complete, but no abatement occurred during this time. As a result, the borough took further action to reduce risk to the public. that is posed by raw sewage being discharged without treatment. Exhibit C in your packet is the notice of disconnection of water service that was to protect the public and incentivize the owner to complete the order of abatement. Water at the structure was disconnected on August 6, 2021. Concurrent with the owner's appeal of the notice and order of abatement, DEC was notified of the situation and on March 12, 2021 issued a notice of violation to the owner. Exhibit D is that notice. DEC directed the owner to show prior state approval of her septic tank, show connection to the borough's sewer system, and submit engineering plans for existing septic system so they could evaluate its adherence to current regulations. No action was taken to address these no action was taken to address these directions from the state by the owner. After this time, there was a long period when activity at the house was intermittent and it appeared as though the structure was vacant. However, in May of 2023, this year, it was reported to the borough that there was activity at the house and in fact, weekly garbage was being collected. On June 5th, 2023, an administrative search warrant was issued by the court system to investigate the violations of Municipal Code 9.16 nuisances and 9.20 dangerous buildings based on the suspicion that no connection had been made to the borough sewer system and the house was inhabited. The administrative search warrant is Exhibit E in your packet. The borough did visit the site on June 7th, 2023 and noted that the substandard piping to the old septic tank, excuse me, and another substandard pipe from the septic tank to the high tide line were in existence and no evidence of connection to the public sewer was apparent. In consideration of the previous order to abate and to connect to the borough sewer system, the findings of the site inspection do meet the definition of a dangerous building as contained in chapter 9.20.1010 I and J. On June 20th, 2023, a notice of dangerous building was sent to the owner, which is Exhibit F in your packet, and also posted on the structure, which is Exhibit G. The notice ordered the owner to vacate the building until repaired, connected to the sewer system within 30 days. On July 27th, 2023, noting that no activity connect had been undertaken, the borough moved forward with issuance of a report of noncompliance to the assembly and owner, which is Exhibit H. A noncompliance hearing was approved by the assembly to be held on this date with notice provided the owner as prescribed in the municipal code. By way of the owner's inaction in response to multiple issuances of orders and notices to connect to the public sewer system, it is clear to the wastewater department and building official that the structure at 410 Metcalf Highway meets the definition of a dangerous building. That definition is Exhibit J in your packet. For the record, that code reads, again, this is chapter 9.20.010, reads all buildings or structures which have any or all of the following defects shall be deemed dangerous buildings. Letter I, those which, because of their condition, are unsafe, unsanitary, or dangerous to the health, morals, safety, or general welfare of the people of the city. And J, those buildings existing in violation of any provisions of the building code of the city or any provision of the fire prevention code or other ordinances of the city. The other ordinances that are in violation here are the original ordinances noted in the notice of an order of abatement and our chapter 14.08.020 A and B, title Unlawful Sewage Disposal Methods Designated, chapter 14.08.080, letter A, when connection to public sewer is required, and chapter 9.16.030 B.2, nuisance, unlawful enumeration. That ends my testimony.
Okay, Mr. Hageman, do you have any other witnesses you'd like to present?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. That brings us down to number 3 on the order of presentation. And that is the owners of the subject property have time to testify. This is Courtney Johnson.
Hi, my name is Courtney Johnson. I've never been to a meeting, so forgive me if I don't follow protocol, but I don't know, am I just speaking my case?
pretty
Yeah,
much.
okay,
Yes,
because I was supposed to be back in Florida and I changed my flight so I could be here, but I just didn't really know what to expect. So, I just want to say from the start, story wise, it all happened because in one of these numbers, Officer Walker was searching my property. My brother was fixing the toilet. Something had fallen in the toilet. My brother was fixing it. He had disconnected it and he disconnected the hose. And when he got arrested, Officer Walker saw it. So it spiraled from there. I personally I never knew that I was connected to a septic and not city because I have paperwork. When I bought the house, I was sold as connected to the city. It says it on Zillow and all the paperwork I had because the people I bought it from both passed away and there was no like back check when I'm selling the house right now and it's what I'm doing, you know, the window's broken in the spare room. Like nobody knew, even my realtor thought it was connected. So when all this happened, it was, I mean, $20,000 is a really big shock. I was trying to carry this huge house by myself and it was a lot. And that was how the house was when I bought it. I'm really sorry, guys. Like pumping raw sewage into the ocean. I'm a biologist. I would never want to do that. So I really apologize. I know I don't know what the order is here, but fixing the sewage is like a yes. I mean, I don't know if we have to go deep into it, but it's obvious that's what needs to happen and it's going to happen. I'm selling the house. The lady is paying cash and she's going to fix the sewage. Like she's trying to get a hold of somebody. Nobody's answering. She's flying in from Juneau this week. So the order is moving. So I don't know. I had my dad watch my house when I was in Florida. I work in Florida for U.S. Fish and Wildlife and my dad was supposed to be watering my plants and watching my house. I go over there, make sure nobody broke in again. And maybe I don't even think he used the toilet. So I actually crawled down the hill the other day because I was like, man, nobody's over here. Are they reporting this again and again? And it was actually a blanket. I have pictures of it. This huge blanket right off the drop line that looks like toilet paper. And I picked it up and I took pictures of it and I videoed it and sent it to my mom. So, I mean, maybe before when Officer Walker, that obviously in the pictures was raw sewage, but never have I seen it again. When my brother got back from jail, that we connected the pipe just like it was. And that's where we are now. I bought the house as connected. I have bills. In one of the ordinances, it says once you are served an official order or whatever, that you will start getting charged for sewage. Well, since I bought the house in July of 2018, I've been paying for sewage. It's been calculating. There's like a chart that says like 2018, you use this much sewage. I've paid it. And then actually when this order thing came up, 2021, they took off the chart on the my utilities page. And now I don't pay for sewage, but I've been paying. I have bills in my book bag that I've been paying sewage since 2018 when I bought the house. And I never knew like it, you know, I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. I have all this paperwork and pictures and stuff, but I'm trying to sell the house. I can't afford it. I can't afford to hook up. And I bought the house thinking that it was hooked up. So I wasn't ready for this commitment. So selling it. Hopefully the next lady gets it and she'll come in and talk to y'all and make everything right. And yeah. Cause I would never, I work for a wildlife refuge. I would never pump sewage into the ocean and keep doing it and go play on the water and eat crabs down there. So I apologize to everybody. It wasn't an intention.
Okay, thank
So.
you for your testimony. Do you have any other witnesses that you'd like to?
My mom was gonna call in and Sarah Holmgren was gonna email or call to say that when she sold me the house, the owners told her before they passed away that it was, but they just skirted the system. I mean, they had 180 days to comply with the DEC and they didn't. And they connected to water, but they were never forced to connect to sewer. So everybody just assumed the city turned an eye, everybody turned an eye. And then when Officer Walker just saw that open pipe, it made this thing happen. Yeah. And actually, Mr. Ray, I did talk to the DEC in Juneau twice. I went to their office and discussed this matter that, I would like to fix it. And they gave me tips and guidelines and things to look up. And so I did reach out to the DEC a couple times. I went to Juneau to talk to them instead of doing it on the phone. So, I think, yeah, the garbage also, I would hope my dad would throw stuff away. So, I mean, that being a telltale that somebody was squatting in my house, I don't know. I hope nobody was supposed to. Garbage activity, I mean, yeah, that could go either way, but, yeah. Thank y'all for your time and listening to me. I don't know,
Well, thank you for your testimony this evening. Is there anyone calling in to speak on the?
Ms. Johnson, what would your mother's name be?
Denise Wicker,
How about a phone number?
228-282.
She is on here. Would you like her to speak?
Yeah, hey,
Okay.
mama. I think you're on mute. Right?
She is, yes.
Mama, mute phone. I wish it was on video. Well, she,
Can you text her real quick and see if she will unmute?
yeah, we're not muted. Her voice is just muted, right? She
Yes,
should be
she's-
able to hear us.
Yes, she should be able to hear us, yes.
Unmute your phone. You're on mute, so we cannot hear your part of the conversation.
Yeah, and she was there when my brother got arrested and that all happened. I actually didn't give Officer Walker permission to search my house. He just walked in my house. And so she was just gonna go in line with everything that's happening and our effort. She tried.
Yeah.
I love you,
okay.
Mom. Okay, that's what she was gonna say if she was here. Okay.
Okay, so if you have no other witnesses to present for your testimony, then it's time now for any other interested parties, occupant, mortgagee, leasee, or any other persons having an interest in the building. Is there anyone in the audience or zooming in, Clerk Thompson? I don't see anybody in the audience.
And not that I know of zooming in.
Okay, well, they should show up. Rebuttal and any other closing comments by the utility director. Do you have any rebuttal, Mr. Hagerman?
I really don't have much rebuttal, just more of a statement. This issue has been ongoing for years now. And it really is time for it to be resolved one way or another. I understand Ms. Johnson's financial limitations, but again, it's been years and some movement towards implementing some of the things that she's been ordered to do would have been a good showing to move forward, but nothing has happened to date. So we just asked the Assembly pass the suggested motion provided in my memo September 5th and determine that the structure at 410 Metcalf Highway is a dangerous building as defined in municipal code, that you order the house to be vacated and not used for overnight stays or as permanent or temporary residence until such time it is properly connected to the public sewer system. At your discretion, you may direct borough staff to draft findings of fact based on the testimony and information provided in this hearing for consideration and approval at your next regular Assembly meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Johnson, do you have any rebuttal or closing comments?
When discussing this today, I'll take the brunt of it if this is what Petersburg needs to get better sewage and better waste treatment facilities. I was trying to get grants. I applied for loans. I applied to so many grants, and every federal grant said that Petersburg had to apply for these grants themselves, and they could actually help the community by helping the poor people connect to the city and do these great things that maybe they aren't able to in their low income lives. And, apply for a federal grant, and I could have done this 3 years ago, and I wouldn't have had to been displaced to Florida and doing a job, away from everybody in my home. I own a home in Alaska. Like, it would have been really nice to have some assistance, you know, so if I'm taking the brunt of it and this is where the lesson starts, good. You know, I know there's a lot of people in town that aren't connected and pumping or don't have water, and, you know, they need help too. I mean, look how much stuff I've been put through for the past 4 years. You know, like, I didn't want any of this to happen. If there was help, financial help for people to do this, Florida is offering up to $18,000 for anybody to replace their septic, to hook up to the city where it's possible. $18,000 for anybody in the whole state. You know, it's beautiful. You just apply for these grants and we will be able to use them. And also, I just have my bills from 2019. I got served the notice in 2020. So I got charged sewer service, sewer use, you know, $40, $18. You know, I just want to bring that to the attention that maybe a reimbursement, or, you know, like, if, you know, if the final notice comes out and then you start paying for something that you're meant to hook up to after the 2 weeks. You know, I have like a year and a half of paying for city sewer. It's just something that somebody suggested that I request reimbursement for that, or put towards my utilities or some kind of help, because we're all in it together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask for a brief explanation from Mr. Hagerman? My understanding is your sewer is charged by the water intake. So if you were hooked to water and not sewer, you would be getting a sewer charge. Is that a correct assumption, or am I wrong?
That is true. So the sewer usage fees are based on the water usage that goes through your water meter. And the bills that Ms. Johnson has do reflect the fact that our ordinance states you have to connect. If you're within 150 feet of the sewer system, you have to connect. And if you don't within a certain time period, then you do start being billed for sewer use. And that's an incentive to connect, because who wants to pay for services that you're not getting? And it's also, you know, it's good for the environment. It's good for the community to have our residents connected to the public sewer system. But that is in the code that those charges will be billed to a customer, even if they don't connect after they've been noticed to do so. The former owners of the house were noticed to do so. They were being charged for sewer, and that charge carried forward when Ms. Johnson bought the home.
Okay, thank you. I just thought that would be a good explanation to have.
Yeah.
Anything else, Ms. Johnson?
Nope, that is it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're on to section F of the hearing, and after the evidence and argument portion of the hearing has been completed, the board shall close the hearing and proceed with deliberations. The deliberations may occur in a closed session. If the assembly chooses to deliberate in a closed session, there was the following motion, but I would assume we're just gonna deliberate in an open meeting. So the public hearing is closed, and it's now time for a deliberation. Any comments from the assembly? Member Mucci.
Thank you. Are we looking for a motion at this time to talk about it? Yep. I move that the structure located at 410 Mitkoff Highway be determined to meet the definition of dangerous building as defined in Petersburg Municipal Code 9.20.010.I and J, that the structure be ordered to be vacated and not used for either overnight stays or as a permanent or temporary residence by any person until such time as it is properly connected to the borough's sanitary sewer system. And that the borough staff be directed to draft findings and an order consistent with the motion and based upon the testimony and evidence entered during the non-compliance hearing for consideration and approval at the next regular assembly meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Member Marsh?
Yes, so the house appears, according to Ms. Johnson, that is in the process of being sold and with a commitment to hook up to the municipal sewer system. So on one hand, that kind of abates the situation right there. So I guess we're talking about in the interim until the new owner takes possession of it, that it cannot be occupied until such time.
I would assume it would be until the facility is hooked up to the sewer system, even with a,
Even with the new owner.
yeah, I would, yeah, think so. Member Fine Walsh.
Is there a possibility, maybe Director Hackman can speak to this, that this classifying the structure as such would prevent the sale? Or, I mean, would it complicate it such that it might prevent the sale entirely? Because it seems to me like that's the most likely way that this situation will be resolved. So we should probably not do anything that's gonna, prevent that from happening, I guess. Maybe you can speak to that.
Through the mayor, I appreciate that comment. It's something that we have thought of. Unfortunately, we can't allow somebody to inhabit the home and contribute to the problem that's already ongoing. That's in our code. That's what we're trying to enforce. And while as the sale of the house, I'm happy for Ms. Johnson that she's found a buyer. We're willing to work with that buyer and work within the parameters of the dangerous building code to allow her to fix the place up. The first order of business has to be connection to the sewer.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the assembly? So at this point, we're gonna, if there's no other comments, the assembly is to make and adopt written findings of fact and direct the utility director to prepare a draft written findings of fact and order for its consideration at the next meeting. So until the next meeting, October 9th, this is just in limbo. Ragerman, or
There is a standing report of noncompliance in the owner's hands that states that shall not inhabit the building, and I believe that will stand. This action that's being requested of the assembly is to formally determine that this building is dangerous according to the fact that it's not connected to the sewer, and it is more of a permanent nature to vacate the building until it is connected. The other notices and previous actions have been time-based, and it really is no time limit. It should be vacated until the sewer is connected.
okay, thank you for that. So everybody understand what we're voting on? Is Member Newman.
So if we vote to make this building a dangerous building, is that gonna hinder the sale of, I mean, I wish there was a realtor here. Is this gonna hinder her selling the building to the new buyer? Can anybody answer that?
I would think that would be between the landowner and the realtor and the buyer. You could, maybe Ms. Johnson could answer that question, but we're past the testimony part. Clerk Thompson.
If it helps, I know that the bank who has given the loan to Miss Johnson is aware of this entire situation. So I don't know if the new buyer is dealing strictly with Miss Johnson and then she will be paying off the bank, or if the new buyer is dealing with, yes. So I believe that it should not hinder the sale. As long as Miss Johnson can take care of her loan, then it should not hinder the sale.
Does that answer your
That
question?
answers my question. I mean, the goal here is to get the house connected, and when there's a new buyer, or obviously the current owner is not gonna do it, had 4 years to do it. I mean, I'm sympathetic to her, but at the same time, I'm sure she probably, did you pay cash for the building when you bought it? Or
She had a loan.
Yeah.
She shouldn't be talking because she's not being recorded. So if we're gonna ask her to talk, I need to have her come to a mic.
And I think we're actually technically past that part in this hearing. Member Mucci.
Yeah, I'm voting in favor of this. I mean, we've been talking about this for a long period of time. I think there's a window here, like October 9th, that the owner and possibly a prospective buyer might have an opportunity to kind of get things squared away. And if it was me involved in that, I think I'd use that October 9th thing as my target date to get things squared away and get some commitments from whoever they're looking at to make it into compliance. So I think the borough's been very taking their time and dealing with it correctly. And I think now we need to just move forward.
Any other comments?
No, the only reason I asked that is because, you know, obviously it's not gonna get fixed. I just didn't want to hinder or impede the process to get it to a point to where it can get fixed. So that was.
Clerk, call the roll.
Mark,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Scott.
Yeah.
Jeff. Thank you.
Okay, so we're on with the regular meeting. Item 4 is approval of minutes. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our September 5th, 2023 assembly meeting.
So move.
Second.
See anybody offering changes? So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item 5, amendment and approval of the meeting agenda for this evening. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So move.
Second.
Motion been made by member Mucci, seconded by member Newman. If there's no amendments, all those in favor of using the agenda as presented, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we'll move forward as the agenda has been presented to us. There are no public hearings today. Item 7, bid awards. There's one bid award. It's the Scow Bay Generator number 2 procurement award. Utility Director Hagerman requests approval to award a contract to Marine Services Incorporated / Verde Power for supply of a 3.5 megawatt EMD diesel generator, remote radiator, coolant expansion tank, motor control center, compressed air starting system, equipment engineering and on-site commissioning support for a cost not to exceed $2,047,000. I would entertain a motion to approve this bid award.
So move.
Second. Motion's been made by member Mucci, seconded by member Lynn. Discussion. Member Lynn.
Question for utility director. Someplace in the narrative here, I see that we don't have the full money for this particular project yet. But it doesn't say in here the thinking behind where we are gonna get the rest of the funds. If you could address that, I'd appreciate it.
Through the mayor, yeah, thank you for the question. Right now, the hope is that a grant that we're seeking for the Blind Sioux Hydro project, $2.7 million will displace some of the bond issuance money that was approved by the community a couple of years ago towards both of these projects. And that will allow us to move that bond issuance money towards the Scow Bay project and solve the funding issue on that. If we do not receive that grant, then we will have to look at securing a loan for the remainder of that project fund and to get the project squared away. I don't want to move down that road until we know for certain that we have to. This step is the first step towards this project. It's absolutely needed for the community to get more diesel generation on tap so that we can support the community if we lose the SEPA connection in the wintertime when our peak loads are highest. So phasing this out with this being the very first phase of purchasing this generator and getting it coming, regardless of when the funding shows up, this is something we need to do, and it's not going to get any cheaper than it is today. So very supportive of moving forward with this.
Questions? I kind of had the same question if the funding was available. And so this is the first step, just awarding the bid for the equipment. Do we have the money to cover that?
Yes, sir. Yes, we do.
Okay.
Carl, through the mayor, Carl, how much money are we lacking? Approximately.
Yeah, well, yes, through the mayor, we don't have a full estimate for the entire project as of yet. An initial estimate, very rough estimate that we had as a result of the load study that we did a couple of years ago said the entire project would be 4.5 million. And so this is 2 million. We have 2.5 million in the capital project fund. So we're about 2 million shy.
So if we get the grant for the turbine or for that project out at Crystal Lake, there would be enough money to cover the balance?
Yes.
Lynn?
Thank you. I'm totally in favor of the project because when we look at our loads are increasing at about 3% each year, particularly the winter loads, December to January. And if we wait, if one of our current generators go down, or if SEPA can't, and we are exceeding SEPA's power that they can provide, we need to have that as backup. And so I don't see us going down this road. At some point, we can still back off if we need to, but I would like to see this go forward because we are dearly going to need this power in the future. Because I don't see SEPA being able to bring in the power for the 3 communities during those winter months that we're going to need.
Any other discussion on this bid award? Clerk, call the roll.
Bob,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the award for the number 2 generator at Scow Bay passes unanimously. Now, item 8, that's persons to be heard on items related to today's agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Please come to the microphone, state your name and who you represent, please.
Hi, my name is Melody Kirchner. I'm just speaking for myself. I'm here because I listened to the meeting on September 5th and the discussion of the mental health trust land piqued my interest because that's just an interest I have. And so I obtained the plats and looked at what was going on there. And some of, because the discussion that was here, it didn't resonate with me, so I thought I better check. It's a sizable subdivision. It's being, it's prepared. The survey was done by R&M. It's already been gone through the state. It's been approved by DNR. So I don't think that it's grossly out of compliance with state, statutes and specifications for how it should be done. Number one, the statement was made that it was so that all these lots would have access to the road individually, and that's not so. The plat shows 50-foot easements, half a dozen only for 100 lots. That's pretty good. The lots are large for the most part. There are 6 that are between 1 and 2 acres, and there are 3 that are between 2 and 3 acres. The rest are 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 acres apiece. And the access, when it's stated in here, I was surprised when I read on the agenda that, your concern is to have that lots are being let out without access. That's done all over the state of Alaska. Many places in Southeast, there's no access but this has provided all the easements for it. There is one easement that I had in question, but I found 2 different plats, and one said it was 25 and one said it was 50. Not uncommon, sometimes there are errors. But there's also another spot between the 2 plats where one has a 25-foot easement and it matches up with the next plat, which is also 25 feet. So you've got the 50 feet that you need for access. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that out. The smallest lots are up by the Papke subdivisions, and they're all smaller. than an acre. It's surprising to me that they're as small as they are. So, and I don't know about, you know, the regulations that the borough is dealing with in terms of providing sewer and whatnot in the future, water and sewer in the future. I don't think anybody out there has water and sewer from the city, but I'm not sure about that. So anyway, I just wanted to bring forth some of those points and maybe some questions that need to be answered before a decision like that is made, stopping the sale of 100 lots in a community where we have need of housing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on items related to tonight's agenda? State your name and who you represent, please. I should have said that before the first speaker. Nothing personal.
Thank you very much. Hello, my name is Nicole McMurrin. I am a community resident. I wanted to speak tonight to the Petersburg Safety and HR Human Resources Review by the Alaska Public Entity Insurance. I wanted to say thank you very kindly for the report. Thank you for the direction. And the support by the assembly. I was a little nervous just to kind of where it was going to kind of get handed to, if the entity would have the ability to be as objective as it demonstrated it was able to be. So I'm grateful and thankful for the outcome. There's lots of points of learning and it's a big agenda. My particular take home message though would be, as a borough, please do avail yourself of the further assistance that is being offered through the report from APEI. I saw the letter from borough staff in response to the report and in what I believe was an intention to, you know, to be supportive. That the word proactive was in there and that really kind of got my goat. But the idea that, you know, we can just sort of make a committee and a safety culture exists is a false one. Safety is about communication and trust and understanding and a lot of different things. So I think that help that an outside entity can give the borough while it begins to shape its conversations around safety, be that through a safety committee and entity, I think would be very helpful. I also think it's shown that maybe asking and reaching out some of those questions around human resources would be a helpful thing to do. Another extension and offering that came forward in the report. And certainly in the realm of crisis support. That was a really big gap that we saw after the crash. And it mentioned that now APEI might have something available should we see ourselves in that situation again. My hope would be we would see some training about how to manage crisis intervention prior to the time we're actually engaging in a crisis, so that we can be a little bit more responsive. And I see we've had some trainings or are working on trainings in the community, so very grateful for that. Again, just to support, to avail ourselves. We needed help. We needed help then, and we need some help still now. So let's avail ourselves to that. Thank you, and I'll look forward to listening to the report.
Okay, thank you for the testimony.
I'm pretty sure that was under 5 minutes.
It was less, actually. You can keep going. Anyone else in the audience like to speak on views related to tonight's agenda?
I'm Artie Parks, and I'm speaking for myself, my wife, Madonna, and our daughter, Molly. We appreciate this opportunity to address the assembly. 7 years later, and here we are. On July the 4th, 2016, our daughter, Molly Parks and Marie Giesbrecht were killed, and Catherine Cardenas was injured while doing their low-risk, part-time parks and recreation jobs. The Borough work van they were in crashed into an embankment after hitting a guardrail at 55 miles an hour. The driver of that van had a seizure. Not his first seizure, nor his second, or even his 10th. This employee had a diagnosed ongoing seizure disorder well known to the borough. Whatever hiring policy, safety protocol, or levels of management that were in place in 2016 did not prevent this avoidable tragedy. And that is why we are standing here 7 years later. We've read the APEI review. It's an easy to read, dispassionate, actionable document. It provides a detailed roadmap for the borough. Leave no questions as to what needs to be fixed, provides instructions on how to fix those areas, and recommendations on how to go forward. We hope the borough can get solidly behind APEI's review, make the recommendations a priority, and take any and all assistance APEI has to offer. Transparency, oversight, and accountability should be key to this process. We hope this will be the start of a robust, dynamic safety culture within the Petersburg Borough. But most of all, we sincerely hope we will be the last family to stand before you like this. RD and Madonna Parks, parents of Molly Parks.
Thank you for your testimony this evening. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak under views related to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 9. That's persons to be heard on items unrelated to tonight's agenda, items that are not on tonight's agenda.
My name is Everett Bennett. I'm representing myself as the Executive Director of WAVE. And I just wanted to invite the community to our Reconnect Petersburg event, which is happening Friday from 4 to 7 at the Sons of Norway Hall. There's going to be door prizes, some catering by fire. And this is an opportunity to connect with other people in the community and also just see what our organizations around Petersburg are doing for the community. I really hope that people use this as an opportunity to see your neighbors or maybe get involved in something that you haven't been involved in before and just learn some more about what's going on and maybe win a door prize too. So if anybody has any questions, they can give me a call at the office. Our number is 907-772-9283. That's it.
Is there anyone else in the audience with views unrelated to tonight's agenda? And pardon me?
I do have one online here. Is it time? Okay. Okay, Cindy Lynn, you are ready to speak if you can unmute your phone.
Problem on our end, or is it on their end?
Well, I can't unmute her, so.
Cindy, are you there?
Yes, if she's muted, she can't reply. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know how to know if you hear us or not, but we see your phone number up, but it shows that it's muted. We'll let the clerks try to figure it out. Trying to call or?
Well, she has called in on our number and I know there's a trick and I cannot remember what it is on Zoom to unmute your regular phone. Not a cell phone. Landline, yes.
What is a local number, isn't it?
Okay, Cindy, try *6 and see if that will unmute you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Good
boy,
job.
thank you, Debbie. Oh, my goodness
It was
sake.
Becky.
This is Cindy Lynn. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine, and,
Oh.
this is on
Oh,
views
thank you for
unrelated.
your patience. Goodness gracious. My name is Cindy Lynn. I'm representing myself. It has to do with the issue of planning and zoning. I received a mailing like I do receive from Liz Cabrera whenever there's development around my home on Skylark Way. This was in relation to government lot 14 going from public use to single family use. In the application, and I hope it's changed, there was no description of how the land would be used, how many lots, where it would be connected to. Liz and I both assumed, at least I think, that it was going to be trailer lots between 20 and 40. I just called Amber Burrell from Rocket Road that owns the land. Absolutely not. It's going to be used for 12 to 15 lots, 100 by 100 feet, which is a building lot, good sized, average, for between $53,000 and $100,000. It's not going to be tied into Skylark Way, so it will not affect the traffic by my home. It will be tied into another area that they're hoping to plat and zone between that GL14 and Odin Way, which might contain 20 to 25 additional building lots, average 75 feet by 100. They will pay for the road and, I believe, totally the sewer and water connections. The manufactured homes that they're hoping to ship a couple up to show people are about $100,000 average. This is, of course, affected by inflation and AML diesel costs. The financing is proposed possibly through Tongass Federal Credit Union, also known as ALPS. I guess they changed. 11 times the Federal Reserve has increased interest for home loans. I don't know if it's fixed. It's around 5% right now. I'm asking the borough to look at the application and give more information for people living around a proposed planning and zoning. This will come before you at some point. Also, please think of having a committee or an individual with the assembly or hired with the city to look at community impact of all this development. The effect on roads, on sidewalks, on traffic, possible traffic lights, the noise, our police, and our fire department, public works like pump stations and all the things that go into that, the electrical system that we have, the generator backup. Our projected growth with Department of Labor between 2021 and 2025 is 0.3%. I don't understand. I've got a lot more to look into, I guess, because that comes out, I think, if I could still do my math, between 9 and 10 people. 0.3%, not 3%. Also, 13 homes and apartments are being used by Petersburg Medical Center, and there are now 22 Airbnbs. If there are 100 lots somewhere by Scow Bay or Papke's, goodness gracious, what is with all this proposed growth? I don't understand. Do I need to read some more reports? I guess. I hope it's not true. And is it related to the ships coming in with 300 to up to 600 people at a time? Or is it snowbirds coming from California that want to come here in the summer? I don't know. But I don't feel that I'm aware of this, and I'm very concerned of the impact also on our schools. The public pays for all of these community impact results of this, not the developers. So please help in this area if you can. Thank you for your patience, and thank you. I owe an apology to planning and zoning. I called in today. There is a call-in program the third Monday of the month between 12:30 and 1 o'clock on KFSK. I don't think most people know that. And I also owe an apology to Mr. and Mrs. Burrell with Rock and Road. I was misinformed. I'm very sorry. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you for your testimony this evening. Is there anyone else in the audience that has views unrelated to today's agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Next item, 10 on the agenda is boards, commission, and committee reports. There are no reports in that section this evening. Item 11, the consent agenda. There's 2 items on the consent agenda. They're applying for renewal of their licenses. The first one is the 420 retail marijuana store. The second is Seaweed Farm Standard Marijuana Cultivation Facility. Both of these have been approved by the Alcohol and Marijuana Control Office Director. I'd entertain a motion to approve these 2 requests.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, will the clerk call the roll?
Mark,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Donna.
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Okay, the items on the consent agenda passed unanimously. It's now time for report of other officers. And the first report this evening is from Alaska Public Entity Insurance. So I believe Barbara Thurston is gonna give the report. Or potentially all 3 of the people that came to town to visit us on this nice rainy day.
Hey, we're from Juneau. We're used to these nice rainy days. So thank you. I'm Barbara Thurston. I'm the Executive Director of Alaska Public Entity Insurance. For those of you who are not that familiar with API, and that probably includes some of the audience here, we are the nonprofit administrator of a group of public entities who have joined together for the purpose of self-insuring one another and for buying excess levels of insurance. So what that means is we are about 70 public entities, including the Petersburg Borough, Petersburg School District, and 68 other entities around the state, who are, basically funding each other's losses. And API administers that whole program. So we aren't an insurance company. In many ways, we look like an insurance company. Many of our members think of us as an insurance company. They pay us premiums, we pay their claims. But because A, we're nonprofit, and B, we are really working for this pool, a big portion of our responsibility is to assist our member entities with risk management. We have a lot of small members. All of our members are small by definition of anywhere else in the country. And most of them don't have a lot of funding for risk management staff, and that's a role that we can step in and help them with. As everybody here knows, on July 4th, 2016, there was a vehicle crash in Petersburg. 2 young women, Molly Parks and Marie Giesbeck, were killed in that accident. 2 other borough employees were injured. All of the people involved in it were borough employees. They were working to help set things up for the Independence Day events. There's a lot of understandable anger and frustration in the community about how and why that happened. And wanting to make sure that this was never going to happen again. So to address that situation, the borough last spring agreed to engage an outside organization to help evaluate the borough's practices and in relation to both safety and human resources, and make recommendations for things the borough could do to improve those. API was one of the organizations that submitted a proposal to do that work, and you selected us at your June meeting. We'd hoped to have the report completed and to you by August 1st. It actually turned out to be September 1st. We'd had some scheduling issues. There were 3 of us who worked on this project, myself, as well as Cole Cummins, who is our loss control manager, and Carlene Mitchell, who's our deputy director, but also a human resources specialist. One thing I want to sort of start by stressing, the work that the assembly asked us to do and the work that we did is evaluating the borough's practices as they are now. So we looked at what's happening now. We were not asked to, and we didn't investigate the 2016 crash. We didn't look into what might have happened or what could have been done differently, et cetera. That wasn't the purpose of our work, and that wasn't the work that we'd done. We did, of course, know about it. And so it was in the back of our mind the whole time. But the focus was not on what could or should have been done differently at that time. It's what's happening right now and what can be done now. So our work had a couple of different steps. As soon as you appointed us for this position, we solicited and received a whole bunch of safety type manuals and personnel type manuals from the borough. We went through all of them, made lots of notes, some on petty things and some on big picture things. But that really helped give us a perspective on at least what in theory was happening around the borough. And one of the things we then needed to figure out is what's actually happening, because sometimes there's a difference between theory and practice. We set up a email address and said that any community or employees, any members of the community or employees who wanted to contact us were welcome to do so. We had agreed that we'd keep that information and the names of the people testifying or providing us with information confidential. We received about 40, maybe 45 comments from various people and read all of them. I think we responded to all of them. In the middle of August, Cole, Carlene, and I were in Petersburg for 2 days, spent the whole 2 days meeting with people. It was a busier time than we had actually thought it might be. We could have spent 4. But we're all 3 booked for 2 full days, talking to various people around basically borough staff, assembly members, and some members of the community and employees. After we were here, we had a few more phone calls, emails, both people sort of giving us information that they hadn't had an opportunity to do so before, but we also reached out to a few people to clarify a few things. You know, we had all 3 pretty much talked with different people while we were here and had slightly different notes on similar topics. We did hear some concern after our report. We sent the report to the assembly on August 1st. I think that it was released to the public in some fashion, or September 1st, very soon after that. And we received a few concerns from people that they may not have had an opportunity to testify or give us information. We agreed that the comments email address would remain open, and it has. And we received a few more comments at that point. Some of them I think would have been nice to have heard before we came, but there was nothing we heard that changed our overall conclusions. It was more details of some things. So there'll be a few of the points that were brought up I'll mention later in the report. So to give a summary of what we found, the report that we gave to the assembly in September, couple weeks ago, was about 30 pages long. I'm not going to go through it in detail. I'll just highlight a few items. I want to start by saying, though, that overall we found that the borough's practices were pretty good. They weren't perfect, but compared to the other public entities and municipalities that are similar, in particular around the state that we work with, you guys are doing not so badly. So we found quite a few things that we thought were good practices, either in practice or in theory, and wanted to highlight a few of those. They have an engaged leadership team, and we know this not just because of the last month or 3 months that we've been working on this project, but the management of the borough has for years been reaching out to us. We do, as I said, provide a lot of services. Cole and Carlene have both been here, I think, more than once each in the last 5 years, to do training, to do safety inspections, do that kind of stuff. So there has certainly been a fair amount of interest among borough management for a while. Your workers' comp claims frequency, which is really the type of claims that affect the city employees, is relatively low. It's not zero. It'd be nice if it were zero, but it again is not too bad compared to some other municipalities. A lot of most of the recommendations we have are building on things you're already doing, asking you to do them more, asking you to actually implement the things that you have in writing, rather than say you're doing everything wrong and scrap it and start over. I think it just, but there are a few areas, I mean, our report, as you saw, had lots of little suggestions. We had sort of some big overarching things that we wanted to address here. I'm not going to go into all the details of all the little stuff unless you have questions. One of the first things, and I know it's been mentioned already, is we recommend that Borough set up a safety committee and that safety committee meet at least monthly as it gets started. Cole will talk in just a minute about why safety committees are important. We do encourage that you set up a meeting and that it include both management and employees, probably a representative from the union and people from around the borough. You need a bunch of different perspectives to have an effective safety committee. Cole, do you want to talk a little bit about why safety committees are good things?
Sure, yeah, and most of them, Cole Cummins, APEI, most of them are pretty obvious, and you guys have talked about them already before. Studies have shown that organizations that have a safety committee in place, an effective and active safety committee in place, have lower injuries and illnesses and lower workers' compensation rates. This is due to active safety committees going out and addressing hazards, identifying and addressing hazards within the workplace, coming up with solutions in different areas, different ways to address those hazards. One thing I wanted to point out is that it's important, I think, as a committee to come together, because when you have one person who's in charge of safety, it's a hard job. It's a huge task. So when you get a group together and can come together and brainstorm ideas and solutions, it's a huge benefit. Barbara had mentioned both management and employees together. I think that's huge. Staff are doing the work on a daily basis, right? So they know where the hazards are and what's out there and what they're seeing, and they can bring that to the committee table, offer suggestions, offer ideas. And then the management side has more resources, has more ability to actually implement those suggestions and recommendations. So I think it's huge to have that blend of both staff and management. And was there something else I was going to say on that? Yeah, I think our report shows that we're happy to help. Implementing a safety committee is can be kind of a tough, it could be tough, it could be intimidating. We have lots of resources to help with that. So, and I'm happy to join on Zoom or to come down and help. And you guys are so sophisticated, you don't need my help, holding your hand to do it. But the offer is there to help, so.
So one of the other sort of overarching things we noticed recommend is that the borough adopt a formal onboarding process for new employees, including a description of what every new employee needs to be taught, trained, what kind of training they need, and how much of that is the responsibility of human resources versus the department heads. We found that sometimes things got a little bit overlooked in that. Carly, you want to talk a little bit about what that would look like?
So I wanted to begin by saying something that ties back to the public testimony that Nicole, I didn't catch her last name,
McMurrin.
Yes, she stated, she used the words trust, communication, understanding. And I think that could be the tagline to this entire project. It ties in perfectly to exactly what I'm going to say and what Cole has already said. First of all, with onboarding and orientation programs, one of the things I really stress with new employees to any organization is extremely clear communication from the first day of employment. There are a whole lot of things about employment that fall under what I call the any fool should know rule, that all of you and probably the vast majority of Petersburg Borough employees know. These particular rules about attendance, punctuality, conduct, safety, and they won't be a problem. They'll do what they need to do. But there are those individuals who will make our lives very, very difficult. And they will lead to situations that lead to employment practices claims, work comp claims, and other tragic events like that happened in 2016. To prevent that, a robust orientation onboarding program sets a foundation for all of your employees from day one as to what your specific expectations are for them. It lays out very clearly what it is that you want from them, what you expect from them. And that would include a specific list of topics, training, and other subjects that will be gone over with every employee at the organizational level, and then at the departmental level, and then as appropriate at the job specific level. Those lists, those subjects be clearly identified, and that they be documented as they are reviewed with every employee. Really, the amount of time that needs to be dedicated to this is not very significant, especially when you consider the benefits in the long run to your organization. The other huge benefit of having a robust orientation and onboarding program is that studies have shown that organizations that do tend to have greater engagement from their employees, faster time to productivity levels, and also lower turnover rates. So it really provides a significant number of benefits for the borough overall. So that was one of the primary things I really encourage to help the organization in the long run and set that clear foundation for all of your employees coming into the organization.
And the other sort of big thing that we noticed pretty much right away as soon as we started reviewing documents is that we recommend you do a review and revision of your personnel and your safety manuals, and that you create an employee handbook. Your current personnel manual is, I don't know, 100 and something pages, and it goes into the minutia on the drug testing of how many parts per million can be in your blood, et cetera, et cetera. An employee handbook needs to be something that employees are actually going to read, and that it will provide them with sort of the basic useful information. So it might talk about how you have a drug testing program, and then refer you to another document that gives all the detail if they really care. The other manuals have a lot of good stuff in them. They also have a few sections, and we highlighted some of them in the report, that are looking a little out of date. And so once you've sort of created your employee handbook, and this is probably a task for your safety committee, is to go through the other ones, probably chapter by chapter, and say, does this still make sense? And then some of them, the answer is going to be, yep, it's all ready to go. And in other ones, you'll say, well, let's remove the reference to floppy disks. And so that's, I lost. No, there it is. There were a couple places in our report that somebody contacted us afterward and said, you made a mistake, you said something wrong. I suspect we probably made more than the two of them that were highlighted, but I said I would address those. We mentioned that the Department of Public Works inspects the Public Works buildings. Department of Public Works actually inspects most borough buildings, and they have been using the safety checklist form that we provide. So that is something that it was not worded as artfully as it could have been. We also mentioned at one point that the borough wasn't doing safety assessments. We were really talking about a couple of job specific types of safety assessments that were in that paragraph, but our statement was again a little broad, and I wanted to correct that. They have done some other kinds of safety inspections. Some of the comments that we received after we issued the report were along the line of, well, the policy says and the manager says we're all supposed to be doing this kind of safety practice, but it doesn't actually happen. I'm sure that's the case, and sometimes I think that's something you need to work on and make sure that it does. If you've got a policy that says everybody needs to wear hard hats, then everybody needs to wear hard hats, and you should be enforcing that. So what are the next steps? We recommend that the Assembly ask the borough to develop a plan for addressing the issues in this report. And I, have read the notes that borough management is planning on presenting right after us, and it sounds like they're at least on board with that idea. I also think that sounds like the borough will be adopting the recommendation to create a safety committee, and that you ask for reports from the safety committee, from the borough manager about the safety committee. However you want to structure it is obviously up to you. But the Assembly should hear on a regular basis, as part of one of your regular department head reports about what's going on the safety front. We also want to make it clear, while we gave some specific suggestions in our report, and there were, lots of more tiny stuff that we could have mentioned. Borough expert or borough staff, in particular the specialized fields, really are the experts on these. Some of the suggestions we gave might not be the best choice. So you need to use some judgment and not just treat us as a cookie cutter approach, because we may have missed a critical piece in something. I want to point out, we're not planning on supervising the borough's practices and adoption of safety practices from now on. Our role is to create this report. We've created the report. We have lots of recommendations. We still have and plan to provide assistance to the borough where they requested in certain areas. And that can be training, that can be safety inspections, it can be help in a safety committee. But supervision of the borough in how well they're adopting this stuff, I think is a role of the assembly, and that isn't a role that we're planning on taking on. I also encourage the assembly and the community to recognize that safety is a process. I suspect the borough manager could issue an edict tomorrow that says you will do this long list of stuff, but then it's not going to happen and it's not going to stick. It needs to be a process. You need to involve all the stakeholders. You need to hit the low-hanging fruit first. That's the quick and easy part. Some of the other things are a little more challenging. They'll take a little more time. But if you can go through the process and make these changes, they're much more likely to stick than if there's an edict that comes on from high. So in final, any of the three of us can answer questions about our report, about something that was or was not in the report, or the work we did. Carlene and Cole are sort of the subject matter experts on a lot of this, and they can answer any questions you've got.
Thank you for your going over your report with us. Or any assembly members have questions of anyone from APEI?
More of a comment. I was pleasantly surprised with how thorough and how well done the report was.
Thank you.
I had a lot of questions going in this process, what we would actually come out of at the other end of it. And I was kind of on a track. I was concerned about underage drivers. My main concern was that we have a safety program in the community, and that anybody in the community that's of a young age, if part of their job description says that they need to have experience driving X vehicle before they can operate it, I think that's a good idea. And I think what you guys suggested is very thorough, and I encourage my other assembly members to endorse this report. And I think it's a good idea. Also that I like is that your willingness to help us stand up this committee and get us going in the right direction. I think that'll be very important. I'm sure you've done this before. So you'll be able to maybe help us avoid some of the pitfalls that some of our other communities in the region have experienced. So thank you very much.
Yeah, not to parrot what Assembly Member Kensinger had to say, but I was very surprised to see what was in this document. It was more or less everything I was hoping to see in a document like this. I've been waiting to have this conversation for about 4 years, and for one reason or another, we weren't able to talk about stuff, and I think it was long overdue to put this report out and to help borough staff be safer at their job and provide protections for them at their job. I mean, if you read this report, there's some really good departments that have great safety protocols, like the police department, fire, EMS, power and light. They're very, they're dealing with dangerous situations, and they have to be careful. Something, I don't think about often is the library. There were concerns voiced from library staff that sometimes they don't feel safe at the library at night. And that's a real concern to me, because it's not how it should be. And I had never thought about that. Like Dave mentioned, I think it's really important for me that when we get ready to stand up the safety committee, that you're involved with helping us get it up and standing on its own 2 feet, because no disrespect to anybody within the borough, but we're lacking on a few things, and we need to start out robustly. I mean, I think there's people within the borough that we can rely on to be part of the safety committee. And there might be somebody that we identify that would be the head safety person within it to make this organization work. But I think it should be like a borough-wide thing where everybody feels that they're heard. Because I've heard over the last couple of weeks that some of the employees don't feel they've been heard, and it sounds like you have addressed some of that, and I think we will continue to address that. And the people who are on this safety committee have to buy into the program. They can't just be on it as another committee I'm on. It's just wasting my time and I got other things to do, but they have to buy into it. And I just wanted to say thank you for this report, because I think it's very thorough and it really checks off all the boxes. And it made me feel great when I read this report, because it was very thorough, and I just wanted to thank you very much for doing it.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from assembly members? Okay, well, thank you for coming and down to Petersburg in person and going over the report with us and offering some guidance in the future. But yeah, thank you for the very detailed report.
You're very welcome, and thank you.
Yeah. Okay, next item on the agenda is administration and human resources. The administration and human resources staff wishes to share plans to implement the APEI recommendations. So that would be Clerk Thompson and Deputy Clerk. And
Yes, I'm not going to read the letter, but basically, we just wanted everyone to know that we are completely on board with APEI's recommendations. We also very much appreciate the review that they did with us. And we will be reaching out for their guidance and help in things that are new to us. And we're open to any comments and suggestions. Please feel free to get a hold of us and let us know if you want to discuss anything or have questions about what we're doing. It will take a little bit of time, of course, just as Carlene or whoever it was said. Basically, we need to take all the recommendations. Once we have a safety committee set up, take all the recommendations, figure out, put them in an order. This is how we need to do them, and start implementing things. So it's not something that'll happen tomorrow, but Becky and I and Steve are committed to moving forward and taking all the recommendations that were made.
okay, thank you. So what can you foresee as we move forward with this? We'll be forming a safety committee, I would assume. So will that be internal? Will that be, in your mind, just all department heads and staff? Will there be any public involvement, or will the safety committee have, open meetings or?
Very good question. And I don't know that the committee will have necessarily open meetings. I hadn't thought about that, but maybe some of the meetings should be open to the public for public to be able to come in. It's a good thought. I originally, what I had thought, and this is just the very beginning, was at least one employee, does not have to be a department head or a supervisor, from each department of the borough on the committee. If we do have some outside borough staff, so like maybe, for instance, throw you under the bus, Susan Erickson, our insurance broker, maybe Susan, because of the business she is in, would be a good person to have on our committee. But we're open to suggestions as to how the committee will be put together. So we're going to start at least with one employee from each department. I believe Barbara mentioned the union. I hadn't thought about that. Maybe we can make sure that at least one of those employees is a union employee or a union representative, so that other employees feel if they can't come to us, maybe they can go to the union representative to bring up their concerns, things like that.
Okay, perfect. Well, I guess it's going to be a work in progress. So
yes,
we'll look forward to seeing its development. Okay, if there's any other questions, Member Meetnig.
Yeah, I don't want to move off this topic until we, at least I'm a little bit more clear as to how we're going to stand this up. it's important to me that as we go forward to stand this up, that we rely and I don't know if the words rely, but have APEI's help in standing this up so that we're doing it correctly. I mean,
I agree.
This is a brand new scenario within the borough. And I want to make sure, as it was mentioned in the testimony, that we are looking at the low hanging fruit, but also how to encompass this whole safety culture so that eventually APEI will back off a bit. But I think as we get started standing this up, that we rely on APEI to give us the framework for, they might have some suggestions about, current department heads or departments that have a more robust safety culture than the others, and bringing everybody in. I don't think it's specifically should be department heads. I think it should be into the, all the way down the line. And I think these meetings should be open to community members to sit in and or assembly members to sit in to just see how things are going. So it's important to me as we move forward with this to make sure we get it started right. There'll be some adjustments as we move along. But just as we get stuff get the safety committee stood up, that we're doing it right from the start. And that's that's important to me.
It is important to me as well.
Okay.
And I was just reminded that APEI's loss control manual that we get every single year, it's updated every year, gives directions, gives some guidance as to how to create a safety committee. And anytime we have a question, we're gonna pick up that phone or send an email to Cole or Barbara or Carlene, and we're gonna ask for their expertise. So it's not, in my opinion, we're not in a box at all. We want to do it right as well, Jeff.
Thank you.
Member Marsh.
I wonder if it's possible that we would have an update perhaps monthly to the assembly on its progress, on what's happening with the safety committee, or what changes are being made, or maybe even some new some recommendations that have been adopted and how they've been implemented.
Okay. Well, but your first intention, Clerk Thompson, is to try to form a safety committee, correct?
That is correct.
And then, so if you could fill us in on the progress on that, and then when you get a safety committee, fill us in on a regular basis on its
Progress.
On its progress, yeah.
Yes, and that is the plan, absolutely. And if the assembly would like it monthly, then monthly it shall be until you change your mind and don't feel like you need it monthly.
Yeah, I think it's important to adopt these, some of the recommendations, and like Barbara said, all of them aren't the shoe's not gonna fit everybody. So, we'll see how it goes. Member Kinsinger.
Yes, one other thing that was brought up was the employee handbook. And I realize that's an involved process and will take some time, but I assume you also plan on updating the handbook ongoing with this process, or do you have any thoughts on how you're going to accomplish that?
We absolutely will be updating the employee handbook, making it shorter. Carlene did say we have all kinds of good information in there. It's just a little bit too much. So, and some of it needs to be updated. Some of the wording is old. So yes, that is on the top of the list after the safety committee is to get that completed as well.
Then I'd also suggest that once you got it updated, you present that to the assembly, let us have an opportunity to take a look at that, and then also vote as a body on whether we accept it or not.
Sounds good.
Any other questions or discussion on this topic? Okay, we'll move on. U.S. Forest Service, Brett Uppenkamp is gonna give us a report.
Hello, my name is Brett Uppenkamp. I'm the special use permit administrator for the Forest Service here in Petersburg. And our district ranger, Ray Bourne, asked me to come and inform the borough of a proposal that we are currently reviewing. Recently, the Forest Service received a film proposal for a wilderness survival television show. Excuse me. They would like to film this show with 16 contestants and up to 46 staff in Little Duncan Bay. on Kupernoff Island from October 4th to November 11th. The contestants will be spread around Little Duncan Bay in 4 groups of 4, while the staff will be day tripping from Petersburg. We understand that some people hunt moose and deer in Duncan Canal and Little Duncan Bay, and our intent is to inform the community of this possibility and just to avoid spoiled plans and maybe unpleasant run-ins out in the woods. So the Forest Service is still reviewing the proposal. Nothing's been authorized yet. There will be a public comment period soon. That hasn't quite been authorized yet. And comments can be sent to me at brettuppencamp@usda.gov. And for those listening, that's PRETUPPENCAMP@usda.gov, or to Ranger Bourne at vernonbourne@usda.gov. And that's VERNON.BORN@usda.gov.
Thank you, Mr. Camp, for your report. Is there any questions? Member Mucci.
It was an exciting report.
Sorry, I get nervous.
No, you did great. So those folks are just gonna be living on the beach and trying to survive, and it's the last person standing gets $1 million?
Yeah, it's like an elimination style Bible show. And they're gonna be in teams of 4. We're not super concerned about the rules of the show. We're more concerned with the environmental effects and social impacts. So I'm just here to let people know in case, if they hunt Little Duncan Bay. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
So, Mayor, may is anybody gonna be coordinating with our emergency services director in the back of the room when it comes to search and rescue if we have to do anything? Sorry, anyway.
Well, they haven't submitted a plan particularly in relation to that, but I'm kind of the point of contact for the Forest Service, and I'm also a lieutenant in search and rescue. So, yeah.
I have a question, Mr. Uppencamp. So this is October 4th. I mean, we're talking 3 weeks from now, and we're still don't have a public comment period out yet. I've hunted Duncan Canal for years, and not recently, but 20 years ago. And I know there's a lot of people that do. Is there going to be? I could see someone going down there to set up their duck blind and run into these guys that are in there, however they're going to dress, eating seaweed or whatever. I just would hate to see a conflict. But how are you addressing that? I mean,
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, we received the proposal like a couple weeks ago, so we're kind of dealing with it as fast as we can. So
it seems like it's kind of being put on a fast track.
Yeah.
That's the timeline.
we're gonna give it our typical comment period for this, what we expect to see for environmental effects, and that'll be 7 days. So we're gonna do our normal protocol where we send out a message to people who have requested to receive notices about these type of things, and then it will also be posted on our SOPA board, and that's also why I'm here to let the community know in this way.
Yeah, I can't remember seeing anything in the paper recently about it, but yeah, it seems like awful. It's getting pushed through really quickly. And I've talked to a few business owners in town one of them says, well, we're gonna feed them all their meals. So they plan, I guess it sounds like they plan on coming.
Yeah, I think they're fast tracking themselves too, just because of such a tight timeline.
I hope we put all the checks and balances in place that are necessary to make it a success for everybody.
Yeah.
Remember Kinsinger.
Since except for Bob, I live pretty close to Little Duncan. But that aside, I hope you let them know the weather isn't exactly the best that time of year.
Yeah, I think that's their intent, is just to add a little drama maybe.
I think they accomplished. That's probably the worst time of the year to be living on the beach.
That's up to them. Any other input or questions? Remember Len?
Yeah, since I look over Little Duncan about every day, there's a lot of hunting use over there that you wouldn't normally see this time of year. And I have the same concern as the mayor, is that the amount of use that gets along that beach this time of year is, I could see a conflict really quick here, where somebody gets shot that not intentionally, but could happen very easy. When an animal goes along the beach there, if there's somebody takes a shot at it, somebody's back in the woods. I think you might want to take a look at some different time of the year. I think we're asking for some problems we don't need.
I'm just concerned the way it's, I've heard a little bit about it, but I didn't know it was a survival show till this evening when you presented it. Then we're talking 3 weeks from now. They intend to start. I'm kind of, that part of it concerns me. So anyway, thanks for updating us on that, and we're anxious to see what they wear.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so the mayor's report. It's fairly short. First of all, I'd like to wish condolences to Representative Mary Poltola from myself and the Petersburg community and the assembly on the behalf of her loss of her husband in a horrible plane wreck last week. We still have early and absentee voting for the October 3rd, 2023 municipal election. It's available downstairs in the police training room, weekdays from 11 to 3 p.m., Monday through Friday, and that's until October 2nd. For more information, contact Clerk Thompson at 907-772-5405 or dthompson@petersburgak.gov. Also, a couple things that weren't entered on the agenda in the mayor's report was the next meeting is October 9th. Due to the election, we moved it back a week or so. And I will be out of town from October 8th through the 20th for a doctor's visit down south, and I will try to zoom in. If not, I would assume Member Lynn will still be the vice mayor and chair those meetings. I'd also like to thank Dave Kinsinger for his 3 years on the assembly. And it's a lot of work. Thank you. And that's the mayor's report. Turn it over to Manager Giesbrecht, unless anybody has any questions.
Good timing. Thank you. On Sunday, the 10th, our new fire engine arrived in town. So you have not seen it, make a trip up to the station. You can take a look at it. They're working on some of the add-on things and getting it ready to go before it's put in use. Including tools and equipment. Training with the volunteers will continue through the month of September. And there'll be an announced push-in ceremony when the engine 2 is placed in service, where the public will also be welcome. But some of you are welcome to go up there now and check it out if you'd like. The CERT class scheduled for last week unfortunately had to be postponed. There's an option for folks to take a 12-hour online course to get through most of the book work. The course is self-paced and free of charge. Please contact the station for details. EMS has a slew of upcoming classes for fall and winter. First is an online ETT course that is ran in conjunction with SERMS. This class will be perpetually open for enrollment and is again self-paced. However, the course is only free to volunteers in the department. Members of the public who wish only to take the course but not volunteer will be charged a $300 course fee. There'll be an EMT2 bridge course scheduled from 12:10 to 12:16. This is a bridge from those with an active EMT1 certification. And there'll also be an EMT1 bridge from those with an active ETT or Wilderness First Responder certificate scheduled for after the first of the year. Estimated start date of January 7th. Anderson Electric will be here on October 18th to start repairing the fire station's light controller, which is malfunctioning. October 8th through the 14th is Learn Not to Burn Week, and the group will be presented to the elementary school. This is also a good time for the public to check their carbon monoxide and smoke detectors and ensure they are all in working order. Community Center has reopened its gymnasium portion of the facility, but with some limited use. The gym and weight room will be open and available around the school schedules. Due to the lack of commercial carpet options, our carpet will be installed closer to October. Please contact Parks and Rec for more information about the room usage and what is available. Parks and Rec is partnering with Petersburg Medical Center to host Bingo Size. I'm not exactly sure how to say that, but this is an evidence-based program designed to incorporate exercise and movement into a fun game to help prevent falls and injury. It is free and everyone is welcome to join by contacting Betty Turland at PMC or at her email address at bturland@pmc-health.org. Gym membership is not required. Sessions begin September 25th. Time is coming for Parks and Rec to close the park restrooms and remove large trash cans from the ball field. This will occur on Friday, September 29th. Other trash receptacles will be available at the ball field. Please be diligent about properly placing your trash in the cans and try not to put food in any of them while bears are active. Public Works finished replacing 2,000 feet of wastewater force main that connects the baling facility to the municipal sewer system. Backfill of the trench is underway. Our new Vector truck arrived and is being ready for service. Once the new truck is fully activated, the old Vector will be auctioned off this fall along with some other borough vehicles and equipment. Vector trucks will be used for pumping out septic systems or breaking up sewer backups issues. Chris and Aaron will be at the Southeast Conference September 19th to the 21st to attend the annual meeting of the Southeast Alaska Solid Waste Authority, or CSWA. It's a really important meeting. Everybody in Southeast is getting hit with massive increases from Republic. So it's a chance for the group to get together and maybe work better together about some future opportunities there. Our maintenance department is helping assisted living address some maintenance needs identified during a recent Alaska Housing Finance inspection of the premises. A lot of minor stuff, but we needed an extra maintenance person or two up there to help get it done by the end of September. EPA has mandated a lead service line inventory in all public water systems to identify any lead or lead-based materials used for distributing water in our system. We got notice from ADEC that we have been included as one of the public utility beneficiaries of a federal grant program in which the state will be assisting completing a process to identify the materials used in our community for our water system. It's a big help because we were going to be a little stretched to try to get that done. The Borough's DC lobbyist recently, upon our request, asked the federal delegation for letters of support for the Department of Energy Section 243 grant award. This is the grant that our utility director mentioned earlier. We wanted to get some letters into their office supporting Petersburg's application. The Blind Slough contractor has all the concrete pours completed in the building. Electrical equipment has been moved in, and the contractor is working on shoring up the hillside to enable pouring the penstock thrust blocks and installation of the new penstock. Gilks Hydro will be in Petersburg on September 20th to guide the installation of the turbine generator, bearing lube oil system, and turbine inlet valve. We're again hoping this will all be completed in October. Our mechanic at Power Light, with the assistance from our meter and groundmen, have been working to brush out the penstock and replace corroded bolts on the penstock couplings. The upper portion of the pipeline from the dam to the breakover is complete, and we are now looking for good weather to continue this work before the contractor is ready to fill the pipe with water again at the end of October. We might be working in the rain a little bit for this. Wrangell Municipal Power Light, just wanted to say a big thank you to them. They took delivery of 6 transformers that were the wrong configuration for their system earlier this year. Power and Light was happy to pick up those units for Wrangell's cost, which are perfect for our system. With lead times for transformers being up to 50 weeks, it was nice to have access to these units and receive them in short order. So, last of the tourship activity has occurred. It's a busy season. We're still seeing some transient vessels heading south, stopping in for weather or just for supplies at times. Western Marine should be arriving on the scene in the next couple of weeks to start the dredging of the first week of October. Staff continues to request South Harbor boat owners to contact the harbor office with travel plans and leave boat watcher contact information for the harbor crew to reach out as needed. With all this rain, we can't stress it enough for people to check their skiffs and boats. We're seeing batteries die in bilge pumps and boats getting a lot of water in them, so. Kitchen and assisted living is completed and back in use. And Derek is working with several assisted living residents who are needing some additional care. Some consultation with long-term care is occurring as well. Some of these folks may have to move up to the hospital. So anyway, that's it. There's questions.
Questions of the manager on his report? Member Mucci?
Thank you. Just a question about engine 2, the new fire truck. How long did it take us to get that fire truck from the time we started discussing replacing it to when we rolled it off the ferry a Sunday ago?
2 years. Aaron, am I close?
No, it was 2 years to build and it was kind of kicked around for about a year and a half before that. It was,
Yeah.
I was kind of listening, but in the beginning, but I wasn't in the
Okay.
administration
Yeah.
towards the end, so I
So,
don't have.
say 3
specific
years.
dates.
I mean, they're amazingly long build times.
Hey, thank you.
Any other questions of the manager on his report? Okay, thank you, Steve. That brings us to item 15, unfinished business. There's one item tonight, ordinance 2023-13. This is an ordinance adjusting the fiscal year 2024 budget for known changes. This is the third and final reading. We've had our public hearing on this ordinance. This ordinance was unanimously approved in the first 2 readings. I would entertain a motion to approve ordinance 2023-13 in its third and final reading.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made by member Kinsinger, seconded by member Mucci. Any discussion? Member Marsh.
Thank you. So regarding the dumpsters that I had some heartburn over because I don't know if that we can afford it. Because it's a fee for service over a period of time yet to be determined, it appears that these dumpsters can theoretically pay for themselves. So it makes it cost effective to go ahead and do this. So I'm okay with this now.
Okay, thank you for your. Any other discussion on this? Clerk call the roll if there isn't. I don't see any. Clerk call the roll.
Jeff,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
David.
Yes. Okay, ordinance 2023-13 passes unanimously in its third and final reading. Excuse me. New business. A, resolution 2023-12. This is a resolution approving the disposal of borough-owned property located at 10 North 12th Street, parcel 01-006-431 by direct sale to the Petersburg Indian Association for $45,000. Manager Giesbrecht and Tribal Administrator Wright have negotiated a purchase price of $45,000 for this parcel. I'd entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made by member Mucci, seconded by member Lynn. Any discussion? Clerk call the roll.
Thomas,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jeff, David,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Mark.
Yes. Okay, resolution 2023-12 passes unanimously. Next item, land exchange to benefit Pump Station 4 project. Utility Director Hagerman requests approval to exchange borough-owned land for privately owned land to benefit the Pump Station 4 project. I'd entertain a motion to approve this land exchange.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by member Mucci, seconded by member Lynn, and this is out by the point, Mr. Hagerman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, at Hungry Point.
So I read through this. Could you just give a brief explanation for the public listening? This is out, right by John Swanson's house in that neighborhood.
I'll try to be brief, but it could get confusing. So the project to rebuild the pump station has been slowly moving forward over the last few years, and we're really to the point now where we're designing it. And through that process, we identified that it really is much better, much more constructible, and much less risk to the existing generator shed and also the home that is fairly close to the pump station if we procure some land right next to, directly south of the existing pump station instead of behind it. So this concept of a land exchange has several steps, and they will be coming back to both the assembly in some instances and going through the planning commission in other instances. It starts with a vacation request for the right-of-way of Ramona Street that is directly behind the existing pump station back to the Valkyrie Street right-of-way. That vacated parcel would then be dedicated to the southern private lot, Lot 10, which is owned by Swanson's present. And the reason we're doing that is because of the next step of a major subdivision. That would, if we subdivide a portion of Lot 10 for the pump station and vacate the right-of-way and add it to Lot 10, the remainder of Lot 10, then it actually gives them a buildable lot and not a substandard lot. The planning commission would probably look unfavorably on a subdivision that produces a substandard lot. In combination with those two things of a vacation of the right-of-way and a subdivision, there would be the need for a utility easement along the southern portion of Lot 10, southern property line of Lot 10, in order to position the force main from the pump station and to relocate the overhead power that goes through the center of the right-of-way, existing right-of-way, to the easement as well. The reason that we're doing that is, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to vacate a right-of-way and dedicate it to private use and then have a huge easement right down the middle of the entire lot. That makes it very hard to build something. So a lot of steps. I hope that the drawings that were provided helped make it add a little sense to the process, but the vacation request would have to come back to the assembly. The subdivision request goes through planning and zoning. And then after all is said and done, if all of that goes through, then the wastewater department will seek a conditional use permit to the planning commission, because the portion of land that the pump station will be on is zoned residential. And so we'd have to have a use permit to allow it to be used for utility purposes. Not as brief as I wanted
Sounds
it
like
to
a
be.
lot of steps. That's why I thought it'd be good if you tried to explain it for, me, and maybe if anybody's listening at home. So, okay, thanks. So when do you anticipate you're already in the process, I suppose. So, I mean, it could be months out before the land exchange takes place and all the zoning and everything's changed. Right?
Yes, we're in the process of designing the improvements, but the land exchange is key. I would not really want to go out to bid or get to an award situation before the land was sorted out. So the first step is tonight is to get concurrence from the assembly that this process is worthwhile going forward with. And as long as the vote is in the affirmative on this plan, then we'll start working with on the steps to organize the vacation of that right of way and also the subdivision of that impending lot. It could be months. We had planned on going to bid at the end of October. It's probably not going to happen. We'll probably get pushed back into the winter time, but as long as we can go to bid this winter, and hopefully we'll still have a project for next construction season.
All right, thanks for the explanation. Any other questions? Member Marsh.
Through the mayor, Carl, may I ask, essentially, the area on the diagram shaded in gray is what Borough is requesting in exchange for Lot 10, which will be then transitioned into ownership by Swanson's. Is that
Actually, through the mayor, that is so the gray section is the existing right of way. That's the Ramona Street right of way that we would be relinquishing to private control.
Okay.
So the next drawing would be the lot that's created from that vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And that one goes all the way out to Nordic Drive.
Okay. And
then the next drawing is the front section of that lot 10 that will be the pump station parcel at that point. And then the last drawing was a depiction of the 20-foot easement along the south border of lot 10.
Okay, thank you. That makes more sense with your narrative. Seeing this.
Okay, any other questions? Clerk, call the roll.
Scott,
Yes.
Thomas, Donna,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
David.
Yes. Okay, land exchange passes unanimously. Hopefully it goes smooth. Next item on the agenda is a letter to the Alaska Trust Land Office regarding proposed development of the South Mitkoff subdivision. If approved by the Assembly, the attached letter will explain to the Trust Land Office the Assembly's concerns regarding the sale of lots without completed central access. So I'd entertain a motion to approve this letter.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by member Kinsinger, seconded by member Lynn. Any discussion? And, member Marsh.
Thank you. So with the letter that was provided by the DNR representative, Amy, sorry, her last name escapes me. She essentially reminded us that we had approved this at Borough formation, that DNR would take the platting authority until such time as Petersburg Borough could do that itself. I spoke with Amy this morning, who said this, by denying this acceptance of dedication, we essentially it's unprecedented. And it kind of hamstrings the process for it stymies it for the present. And I'm thinking with this letter, the idea is to clarify some boundary situations and platting with easements and such, that we will have a less complicated time subdividing it down the road. One of the concerns I have is the goal to make area borough land outside of service area 1 mimic or pattern the platting like service area 1. And I'm
Yeah, well, no, go ahead, finish your thought. I was gonna ask the manager to, or the clerk to see, there's been discussion between their attorney and do we actually have platting authority by our charter or when we formed the borough, and what precedents have we set in the past? And so I haven't been involved in those discussions, the manager and the staff have.
So I can speak, and I think Debbie's got some information as well. Both Liz and our attorney are working on a letter to go back to mental health that outlines, it responds to the letter from DNR on exactly kind of what the next steps we would like to see. This letter here is a response as well, because that's the Assembly asked for that. This will be included in the letter that goes to Mental Health Trust and copied to DNR saying, look, we're going to work with mental health on this. DNR does not own that property, mental health does. So we want to work with mental health and try to come up with a compromise solution that mental health puts some of the things in that we think are important. As I mentioned to the mayor earlier today, when he asked me about it, we don't envision, I mean, at least I don't, but the Assembly has to make that call about this being like it is in Service Area 1. So basically, I personally would say we'd want some kind of limits that, anything that we put in place only applies to subdivisions of more than 10 lots, for example. I'm just throwing a number out at this point, rather than somebody who's got a big lot or two and they want to break it in half. We don't really want to get in the middle of that. What we do want to talk about is when they're putting 100 lots together, which is what mental health is doing, that they take care of some of the work that makes it easier for people to actually buy these lots and use them. So road access to Mitkoff Highway is an example, having it planned out in a way that the roads connect together. And the biggest one is we don't have water or sewer out there, but we definitely have electric utility out there. And Power and Light ends up doing a bunch of these little windy, extensions trying to get power to people. It ends up costing the people a lot of money, and it's not ideal for us to work on it. And so keeping those utility easements and designing them in a way that works with power and lights needs would be pretty helpful. Because what happens is these people buy these lots, and then when they realize that they can't use them like they want, they're coming into the borough and wanting us to fix it. Or they're coming in, going to power and light and saying, hey, Carl, we need electric at our line, and the only way to run it is having to negotiate with other people about other easements. So DNR, who designed this for mental health, isn't really worried about us, I guess, is what it comes down to. And we'd like that to change.
Go ahead,
anyway.
Marv.
Thank you. As a follow-up, there are people who do want all the utilities, but there are people who buy land out the road for the very reason of it's out the road, and they want to be off the grid. They want to be on their own. They don't want somebody plowing their road or it's whatever. So from my perspective, I like that option that homeowners, that people who are looking at these parcels have that option, that they don't have to be in a subdivision that maybe looks like a subdivision with streetlights and all that kind of stuff. So I hate to put people in a box. We talk about people, things in a box. I hate to put this land in a box, that these are the parameters that can only be accessed.
Member Lynn?
I want to address this from a different standpoint, living out that way. One of the things is we go through arguments every year about plowing roads out there that aren't built to borough standards. Well, we can't plow them because they're not built to borough standards, but yet there's school kids on almost all those roads that are out there. And there's more and more growth out there, and the people come to both Member Kensinger and I and say, well, we want this, we want that type of thing. The problem is that as soon as those are sold, I had somebody who's interested in one of those lots says, well, I can run my four-wheeler down there and I don't need a road. Well, yeah, but there's another 100 lots there, would access that. The problem is that some assembly, not us, but some assembly down the road is going to be dealing with this problem if we don't put some kind of an agreement with Mental Health Trust up front of how those roads are going to be dealt with, and the sewer and water system, and particularly the sewer and water systems associated with it, particularly the sewer systems, because some of those lots are, in my mind, are substandard. But I don't want to get in the middle of that. That's a state issue. But it's one that's going to come back and bite us, I think. And the same thing with providing electrical utilities out there. Yeah, you can do it, piecemeal at a time. But if you plan that out and did it up front, it's going to save a lot of money in the long run and make it easier for Carl or to provide utilities out there, in my mind. I don't want to stop the development, and I understand your point. But I would like not to continue to get into the same issues that we've been dealing with for the last 4 or 5 years.
Answer.
Having been one of the first property purchasers out in the Papke's area in the mid-90s, I've seen the development of that area over there over nearly the last 30 years. And anybody that lives out there usually at some point will want to have access to a road. And most people, if they can't get access to public power, they're going to want public power. Because I also own land that I've had for 40 years where I don't have access to power and I don't have any roads. And I know there's certain people that can pull it off, but and I'm not putting myself on a pedestal. It's not easy, and it gets harder every year as I get a little bit older. So my concern is seeing how Papke's area has developed and the number of houses that are out there now. I see the potential for problems. I think it's important that land out there be made available, but if it's going to be made available, they need to have a little bit better access to Meetnig Highway. And that those lots needed to be better designed. Mental Health knew about this. I talked to them years ago when they were talking about developing this property. I said, whatever you do, do not have 1 million connectors to mental health, to Meetnig Highway. And sure enough, the DOT has expressed that they're not going to allow it. So I think we'd be doing people a disservice selling them land. A lot of it's muskeg. There's some timber on it. that you don't have any road access to, you can't get power to. I think in the long run, we will be doing mental health a favor. They might not know it right now, but in the long run, we'll be doing them a favor. And whoever's sitting up in this chair 30 years from now will be thanking us that we slowed this down a little bit and had a second look at it and maybe see if there's a way that we could provide a little bit better road configuration out there, I guess maybe is the right word. But I'm sorry, they have been informed by many people that they needed to look at this and do this, but they chose not to do that. And our only opportunity, I guess, to have any input in it is to do what we're doing here today.
Any other discussion on this letter? And I'd like to, so what the managers spoke to a little bit ago, there's gonna be another letter drafted. So is this, should they be sent at the same time, or is this just a explanation to our first action? We asked for a letter explaining it. I agree, but does it make more sense to the assembly to send one letter that's?
So I think that our attorney wanted us to go ahead and send this letter in response immediately, and then this letter is going to be part of the second letter that will be sent. And just so the assembly understands how we got to where we are right now. When we became a borough, we passed in 2013, we passed a resolution saying that DNR had the plating authority outside of Service Area 1. All we need to do to take that plating authority back is to do another resolution saying we will be taking the plating authority and giving a effective date. But if we are to do that, we want the effective date to be far enough away to give us enough time to write an ordinance that's gonna have all the details as to what plating we will be responsible for, you know, what the rules will be outside of Service Area 1.
What kind of monetary figure comes with the responsibility of the plating? And, you know, there's a lot of discussion, I would think, in that discussion.
Yes, so if
Lot-
that is what the
I-
assembly wants to do, we just need to make sure that the resolution gives enough time as far as the effective date for taking back plating authority from DNR, that we can write this ordinance, work through it, and get it passed in 3 readings.
Through the mayor. One option may be to start working on the ordinance before we do the resolution at all, even. Or did Sarah have a comment on that?
Well,
Me-
it
my-
depends on what the assembly wants, of
Yeah, I mean,
course.
my thing was giving the assembly an opportunity to massage an ordinance to make it the way you want. Because if you don't come to an agreement on that, then we don't need to bother DNR with saying, we'll take plating authority back. In other words, we're just doing it backwards, making sure the assembly has agreement on what the ordinance should look
And
like.
we have that's as a discussion item later in the agenda.
Yeah.
So let's just address this letter. And if there's no other discussion on the letter, we'll vote whether we're gonna send this letter or not. Clerk call the roll.
Jeff,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Scott,
Yep, yes.
Okay, bear with me, I pushed the wrong button. I gotta get this back up again. Take a 2-minute break. It's almost there.
Almost there, yeah. There's a lot of stuff. to
I
look.
hate to say it, but my Starlink at home is faster than the internet in this building. It appears like.
we should think about that.
Got it. Okay. Sorry about that. Everybody needed a breather anyway. Item D, we're back on. Approval of 2023 election officials for the October 3rd election. Clerk Thompson requests the approval of the following borough residents to act as election officials on October 3rd. There's a number of people. I'd entertain a motion to approve them all.
I'll move.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, you have your crew, Debbie.
Thank you.
The communications are listed here on the agenda. And we don't read them, so if anybody's interested, they're on our website. Assembly discussion items. Here we are. We're gonna talk about it some more. Oh, I didn't know you left. Extending plating authority outside of service area one. Assembly member Mucci request a discussion regarding this issue.
Thank you. Like we talked about a little bit earlier, you know, at the last assembly meeting, there was some discussion about whether or not we wanted to take over plating authority outside service area one. And this is kind of piggybacking on the discussion that we had about whether or not we want to do that. And if we want to do that, the steps that would be involved to make that happen. And I don't have all the answers to make it happen, but I think the borough clerk understands the steps that would be needed to make this happen if the assembly wanted to do that.
Yeah, she was talking about that back then. It was a resolution, ordinance, and then would that involve, that would not involve any charter change because it was just the resolution that we passed after borough
correct.
formation.
Yes.
So I guess if it comes before us as an action item, I'm sure Debbie would have all the steps, you know, lined out, and I would like to know if that comes before us, what kind of responsibilities do we take on? Do we need more staff? That kind of a thing. Remember, Lynn?
Thank you. You're asking some of the same questions I've been asking. There's two sides to that coin. One is what happens, what authorities that we've had, that I know that the managers asked some of these questions to our attorney. If you look at it from the positive standpoint, if we were to take plating authority, then and we developed an ordinance, then we have authority. But let's turn that coin around. Let's say we chose not to take authority. But can we still take action related to any kind of a major subdivision like that? Do we have that authority? And some of those questions I know have been asked to our attorney to have them answered yet. The second part of that is the same question you were asking is, how big is this? Would we have, could, for instance, Liz take that on as part of her job? And I've asked the question, you know, how big is this elephant we're looking at? You know, is it, and I don't know if we know, frankly, but I've asked that question. I'd still like to know, same as you do, and go back to what the manager said. Is it, okay, are we talking about areas that are only, let's say, greater than, let's say, five lots, something like that? I don't know. I'm just, so.
Through the mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah, Liz's answer to my question, would you need more staff, was, in other words, how much work do you create? She can't answer that question right now.
Right.
And that's one of the challenges with this issue.
You know, and then just another thing to think about is, if we outside service area one, that goes all the way up past Port Hooton. You know, you got, Gold Belt has land in there, so do we have authority to tell them how they're gonna plat? I mean, there's logging roads all over there now from their logging days, but I mean, what kind of a can of worms are we opening? And so, yeah.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. A question I've asked our attorney, which I can't answer, is can we just take plating authority back and make a service area out of Meetnig Island? And I don't know the answer to the question I've asked, and yet to be determined. And then what she has to do is go back to the state statutes on plating. And last conversation I had with her is that those aren't straightforward either, so there was still some questions. So.
And the rules change through the mayor. So if you did it via a service area, then people do have to vote.
Yes.
Because you can't form a service area without the people who live in that area voting on it. So
Well,
that changes the dynamics.
People in that service area are responsible for paying for the improvements or in that service area. Remember Kensinger?
Well, I understand this is a complicated issue, but we shouldn't have formed a borough if we didn't want to take on these complicated issues. That said, usually when you have a large plat like mental health is proposing, the state DNR charges fees. So we would simply have to charge a fee corresponding with the complexity of the job. And if we don't have enough staff here locally, then we do like we do in a lot of other situations, we contract out that job to somebody else. tell them, take a look at this. Does this make sense? What sort of changes do you want to make? And the fees associated with that get charged to the entity that's proposing the subdivision. There's lots of extraterritorial land owned by the university and mental health out the road. This will be a problem. This will be an opportunity that will be occurring for a long time in the future. I think the town needs to think beyond its boundaries of Service Area 1. I think if we want to be a borough, we need to start thinking outside of Service Area 1. And I'm not talking about zoning, I'm not talking about building inspections, but this has a lot of advantages to people out there. One of my neighbors wanted to combine 2 lots. But to do that through DNR is a very cumbersome process. I think another person we need to bring in this conversation is Rick Braun. I've had many discussions with him about this over the years. It's really hard if you own property outside of Service Area 1 to try and get any property line changes done through the state. It's expensive and it's cumbersome. So that would be an advantage to the people that live outside of the area. And it's a real simple way to deal with it. You just do, like you said, you say any subdivision over X number of acres, over X number of lots has to go through this. And we can deal with that with an ordinance. The service area would be cumbersome, controversial, and probably be counterproductive in the long run. It's not that complicated, but it is one of the complications that we need to take if we want to step up to the plate and fulfill our obligations to the people that live outside of Service Area 1 when we form the borough.
Any other discussion? Okay. Next discussion item is the Housing Task Force. Assemblymember Kinsinger requested discussion regarding the Housing Task Force.
Pretty simple. As you guys know, I'm leaving the assembly. I think you're going to have a couple of decision points. We'll have the study will be out by the end of the month. At that time, I think the assembly needs to decide whether you want to continue the Housing Task Force. If you do decide to continue the Housing Task Force, I'd like to remain a member on that task force, but I would like you to also consider appointing a current assembly member as a chair if you choose to continue the task force.
Okay, thank you for that update. We'll wait to see what happens after we get your report. Any other input from assembly members? Okay. Petersburg Municipal Code, Chapter 4.35, Property Development Fund. Assemblymember Mucci requested discussion regarding the Property Development Fund Code. Member Mucci.
Thank you. Over the last, I think when we first started talking about the supplemental budget, we talked about using money out of the Property Development Fund to repair some project up at the gymnasium and the sewer system up there. And it always struck me as weird that we were using Property Development Fund for building maintenance. And I've had a few conversations with Jody about how that all works, this, that, the other. And I think at this point, the easiest solution to that would be to make this chapter 4.35, the Property Development Fund, read also as the Building Maintenance Fund, so that there is no confusion from the public who thinks there's $500,000 in this fund that is for property development, but it can be used for building maintenance as well. There are still some other issues I'd like to address as the Building Maintenance Fund, whether or not we could have some way of having each department put into the Building Maintenance Fund, kind of like the motor pool fund. But I think the first step would be to clarify the name of that fund so that the community understands what it is and what it's for. So I think I'm going to suggest at a later meeting about changing that, and I'm not exactly sure how to do it, if we do it by resolution or we code change or whatever, but I'm not exactly sure how to do that.
To change the title of an ordinance, it would need to be by ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So how long has it been called the Property Development Fund? Does anybody, I mean, I've always remember it being called that.
Two.
It's always been that.
I've been here 18 years and
Yeah.
I think it's always been that.
So it's always been used in the fashion we're using it today, is to do maintenance on buildings that need it or towards putting it towards the property development. So it's
Yes.
just a confusion over the language. is what it
Yeah,
is.
and let's not confuse it with, we do have a building maintenance department that's within the Public Works Department. That still is being paid out of the general fund. So we have 2 employees that are part of the building maintenance department. It used to be a separate department in the budget, but you'll find it within the Public Works budget now. They because they have the same department head that oversees both Public Works and building maintenance. So I think that has caused some confusion for people.
So does that subsection of Public Works, then the maintenance, do they have their own pool of money, or does that come from Public Works? Jim,
It's in the Public
price.
Works budget, so it comes from, it's in the general fund, which comes, supported with taxes. It does have a few capital outlays that you'll see at the bottom of the Public Works budget, but, and then they have the 2 positions for building maintenance that, are lumped in with the other payroll for the other Public Works employees.
If I may, through the mayor, just to add to that, and then we have a maintenance person and a half that are inside Parks and Rec that report to Stephanie, and a maintenance person up at the manor that used to report to Sheila and kind of right now reports to Michelle. So, the belief that we disbanded the maintenance department is not true. We just we reorganized them is what we did. We put them in different spots. Parks and Rec could probably use 3 full-time maintenance people with the wear and tear that building gets. So we put maintenance people in that department that report to that director, which means there's a lot more accountability. Same with the manor. And then we have 2, as Jody said, maintenance people that support all the other buildings, which is a tough job, but all of their salaries are built into those budgets. There's not a separate set of money, and they're not paid out of the property development fund. That's property development fund is just money that comes in through a couple of different sources, and that the borough has used for years to do big maintenance projects, and potentially could do it. The 100,000 that the assembly was talking about could have been used. That's used out of the property development fund. That's very common.
Member Mucci?
Sure, and thank you. It's still, I still haven't wrapped my head around it that we have a property development fund that part of the money that comes into that fund comes from the sale of real estate and property around town.
Also through the mayor, also from marijuana.
Sure.
Taxes, and over when our general fund, half of the general fund profits, if we end the year ahead, goes into that fund.
Sure. And so we still have a building maintenance department and a building maintenance fund that the building maintenance department doesn't have any money to maintain buildings.
Correct.
So we're using the property development fund, which when I first look at it, looks like if we have a project like we're trying to do to develop property, that we should use that money. But if that money's all gone for building maintenance, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I think by changing the name of it is a good start. But it's beyond me that we're using property development funds to maintain buildings.
The biggest part of that, through the mayor, the biggest part of that money does not come from sale of property. The biggest part of it comes from the general fund.
Yep.
And, if everybody wants to raise taxes so we can put more money into building maintenance, I mean, I'm sure you would have plenty of takers in our maintenance department. Reality is, it's an area of the state, I think, in a recent meeting that Scott and I attended, what was it, 50 million in deferred maintenance just in Southeast? Maintenance is a huge problem everywhere, not just in Petersburg. So you can almost put a never-ending supply of money into that use. And what we try to do is use it judiciously and carefully.
Thank you.
Okay. That being discussed thoroughly, then we're on to scholarship programs for trade schools. Assemblymember Mucci requested discussion regarding a borough-sponsored scholarship program for individuals wishing to attend a trade school.
Thank you. We've talked about this in the past. I know Steve has talked about it. with PEDC and stuff, and I just, with the school year starting, and this is on the school board's agenda last week about scholarship programs and working with AvTech and the University of Alaska for trade programs. Is that something that the communication is still going on within the borough and the school to maybe have a way to work in partnership with the school for scholarship programs for these programs?
Member Giesbrecht, or Manager Giesbrecht, could you answer that? You have been working on this, and
Yeah.
I'd like to interject some other, I know there's local businesses in town that are trying to do it on their own, you know, to send people that are interested in outboards or car mechanics to AvTech. Trident Seafood sent 3 or 4 of their top maintenance people through Southeast Alaska this spring, encouraging young people from like Craig and Klawock and Wrangell and Ketchikan. I'm not sure all communities they went to. My son was involved in it, and they're trying to encourage people to go learn about refrigeration or wiring or welding. So there's many different people that, entities that are trying to figure out how to fund schooling for people to get into the, you know, voc tech training. So, yeah, and we're one of them, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, back in August, I started on what would a program look like, a scholarship program, calling it for, and that's separate from what PEDC is talking about. The mayor's correct. I mean, Mattingly Electric has used a program through AvTech. Rockies Marine is talking about it, you know, a program purely for outboard through AvTech I spoke to the AvTech director, and they're talking about some of that. The challenge for the borough is it's all about money. You know, one of the little thing I handed around, I didn't expect to hand that out, but we have to budget for that. So if we're gonna do it, I wanted to put it in as part of a future budget and say, this is what, and to get to those numbers, I mean, the assembly can clearly change them, but there's a lot of things like, what's your application form gonna look like? You know, which programs that AvTech offers does the borough want to support or not? Who's gonna make those decisions about who gets funded and who doesn't from a scholarship perspective? All those really messy details have to be worked out before we can roll a program out. And it's gotta be at time of the year where we can budget for it. My hope was to have enough of those details filled in by budget time that I can come to the assembly and make some kind of sense and say, you know, budget for this, and we could do 2 scholarships, and this is what it would look like. And by the way, this is how we're gonna manage it. I'm not there yet. I mean, it's really a lot of work. We got a couple of lawsuits. We've got a, you know, now a safety thing to put together. And we're starting union negotiations with IBW probably in the next couple of weeks. Anyway, so it's definitely it's a pet love of mine. I want to make this work, but it's going to take a ton of time. Any one of you want to be involved in it, you're more than welcome to help me out, and I'll give you assigned tasks. But for the meantime, it's a lot of work, and I want to do it. I don't want to come back to you with a supplemental budget. I want to do it in a way that says, okay, here's the money, and we build it into the budget and can afford to maintain it for not just 1 year, but multiple years.
Thank you.
Any other input on the trade school discussion? Southeast Alaska Sea Otter stakeholder update. Member Mucci has an update for us.
Not as much of an update, but a report in your packet you can read through at your leisure, but I think one of the most interesting part of this understanding sea otter population change in Southeast Alaska is the narrative that talks about in 1965, between 65 and 69, how the Alaska Department of Fish and Game and the Atomic Energy Commission reintroduced 413 sea otters from Anchitka Island in Prince William Sound to 7 spots around Southeast Alaska. And over the last couple of years, they've been getting some real close numbers on sea otters in Southeast, and they're up in like 40,000 number for otters in Southeast Alaska. So to me, it's just amazing that 413 animals have bred to the point where there's 46,000 of them, and it's just, we're still not figuring out how to make that population smaller. It's interesting reading.
You have to think it even because I just read an article where they're talking about releasing more in Northern California.
Yes, I read the same thing.
Okay, all right.
Yep. But I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention because sometimes I go to these meetings, I just want to make sure the assembly had the notes and information.
Sea otters are an interesting discussion. They did a sea otter exclusion zone in California. I can't remember where the border was. They'd trap them with these clamshell type traps. They'd transport them south of the border and release them and they'd come right back. I mean, anyway, anyway, no more comments on that one. Any other input on the sea otter stakeholder issue? Assembly member comments. Any assembly members have comments?
Yeah,
Member
well, since this is member Kensinger's last meeting, you gotta thank him for everything he's done. But the one area he hasn't really done a really good job, I think he was our representative with the Alaska ferry system. And, you know, I don't see any increase in ferries or anything else. So Dave, you gotta come back sometime and finish your job. Thank you.
I'll make one parting comment. Thank you very much for the opportunity, the members of the community, to be your assembly member. Member Lynn is most correct. I've worked on the Alaska Marine Highway system for 25 years, and the only thing I can say for sure about that is it's gotten worse every year that I've worked on it. So with that, thank you very much.
Maybe you should become the commissioner. Yeah. Okay, is there any other assembly members that have comments? Any recognitions by assembly members or staff? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.